Support for the Will Cain Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying a home for a moment. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about that. They're calling it the power buying process. Here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they'll lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now, here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
This is the Will Cain Podcast on ESPN Radio.
I mean, is Matt Ryan an elite quarterback? Is he a top 5 quarterback? After last night's 18-12 loss by the Atlanta Falcons to the Philadelphia Eagles and complete ineptitude on offense for the Falcons, is Matt Ryan even a top 10 quarterback? It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and ESPN News. Coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about who's the most interesting team in the NFL. Who are you going to be dialed into on a week-to-week basis? Who are we going to be talking about? Who are you going to be calling in about? And conversely, who are the least interesting teams in the NFL? Best bets for the weekend, both college and pro football, but we start with the action last night in the National Football League. The defending champion Philadelphia Eagles beat the Atlanta Falcons last night 18-12. The Eagles also unveiled their championship banner. It lasted all of about, a quarter and a half before the boos started raining on the hometown champions, but such is life in Philadelphia. But with such an inept offensive performance from what many expect to be an offensive juggernaut in Atlanta, Atlanta is the darlings of many picks early in the season for Super Bowl champion. With Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley and a two-headed monster at running back and a league MVP at quarterback, the Atlanta Falcons were, early on, I saw on many lists as Super Bowl favorites. But after putting up only 12 points, five trips to the red zone, resulting in only 10 points in those red zone trips, the Atlanta Falcons don't look like championship material. And Matt Ryan does not look like an elite quarterback. It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Regarding those red zone trips, head coach Dan Quinn says, this cannot stay. Listen.
17's over. This is 18, and that's part of our game that we've got to get right if we're going to be really good led. Our ability to, score down there, that has to change, and we weren't able to do that tonight. So we'll give credit to them. We knew coming in this was going to be a good matchup defensively, offensively, and all the different areas, but that part of our game, clearly tonight, we didn't execute at the level we'd like, and we've got work to do.
Not to lump all of the blame down on Matt Ryan, because offensive coordinator Steve Sarkisian obviously deserves some blame. It's really, truly inexplicable. I feel like I've rolled into the set of First Take on numerous occasions. I feel like I've talked to you here as a Dallas Cowboy fan who's seen Jason Garrett and Scott Linehan just torque a game plan all the way towards a direction that you cannot comprehend, so heavily tilted in the way of the pass. Here's Steve Sarkisian doing the same thing. We're talking about a one-possession game here. One-possession game. And it was 43 pass attempts against 18 rushes. By the way, this is while the Falcons are averaging over 4 yards a carry. This is as their star running back gets 6 carries. Freeman gets 6 carries. He's averaging 6 yards a carry. And still, let's go to the air, folks. Let's throw it time and time again. And how did that go for the Falcons? Not so well. Matt Ryan completed less than 50% of his passes. He was also a problem in the red zone. Listen to Matt Ryan.
That's what we got to keep doing. It's a long season, and tonight wasn't what we wanted, for sure. but we continue to go at it in practice. We continue to emphasize that, make it a point of emphasis, and I really believe that we're going to make those plays as we move forward.
They better, because this won't work. This is not going to be winning any Super Bowls, and this is not going to put Matt Ryan in the class of what's considered elite quarterbacks. Hell, it may not make Matt Ryan in the conversation for a top 10 quarterback. Completing less than 50% of his passes, throwing an interception, poor on third down, a quarterback rating of 12 last night. And it makes you wonder, who won the MVP in 2016? How good exactly is Matt Ryan? Now, let me take a moment to say two things. Number one, you have to give credit to the Eagles. You have to give credit to the Eagles' defense. You have to give credit to the way they stuck in the game and ground it out. The Eagles got the W. It was a W they needed when they're working with their backup quarterback. And number two, look, man, I just can't join your, hey, Thursday Night Football stinks chorus. Granted, about the time that an extra point is missed, I start going, this isn't actually the best of football. But let me tell you something. You know what it is? It's football. So please spare me the looks like the preseason. Please spare me the it looks like Thursday night's tweets. We got football back. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Just enjoy it. But back to Matt Ryan. Who is he? Matt Ryan's not an elite quarterback. That's obvious. Not many guys get to share the elite category. In my estimation, 10%. So that puts you at 3 quarterbacks. That's Brady, Rodgers, and Breeze get elite status. Then you have a second group of quarterbacks. A group of quarterbacks who can win, who can carry your team. These are guys like Ben Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers, Matt Stafford, Cam Newton, and yes, Matt Ryan. And when he was healthy, it was Andrew Luck in this category as well. But what I'm here to tell you is Matt Ryan is hanging on by a fingernail in this category. Matt Ryan is not safely near the top of this group. He's at the bottom of this group. And one more year of performance by the guys right under it, the guys who are in the still proving it stage. I'm talking about guys like Carson Wentz, Deshaun Watson, Jimmy Garoppolo, Dak Prescott. One good year by those guys, and Matt Ryan is no longer a top 10 quarterback. Matt Ryan is not a mystery anymore. Somehow he's divisive, but you can't call him an unknown. He's good, but he's far from great. Listen to Steve Young, ESPN's NFL analyst.
What I want to do is say Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, and Matt Ryan. That's what I want to do, but it just keeps not happening. What is it? Supporting cast? Is it because he doesn't get the running game that he needs? Is it he's got great players around him, and I want Matt to step up and make that last drive and put it in the end zone. I know it's a lot to ask, but go win those games. Matt's been playing great football for a long time, but there is something about that last bit of getting to Everest, that last base camp all the way to the top that Matt needs to just climb himself.
Matt Ryan's closer to dropping into the third tier of quarterbacks than climbing up into the first tier. He's closer to Kirk Cousins than he is to Drew Brees. The truth of the matter is this. Matt Ryan's 2016 MVP year, that's the outlier. We have over 10 years of evidence on Matt Ryan now. And every one of his career heights, his career records, were set in 2016. From touchdown percentage, lowest interceptions, yards per attempt, average yards per completion, every step of the way. Matt Ryan's 2016, take a look at it. Go to Pro Football Reference. Look at the year after year. Tell me which year looks different. It's the one when he won the MVP. It's the one when he had Kyle Shanahan. You want a lesson from Matt Ryan? It's this. Jimmy Garoppolo should be really excited about who's calling the plays for him. Jimmy Garoppolo should be really excited about who's going to be in charge of his career because it produced an outlier year, a year we all harken back on, a year we all think defines Matt Ryan. But the truth of the matter is, the other 9, 10 years, it's funny how they all look the same for Matt Ryan. Closer to Kirk Cousins than Drew Brees. That's Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Coming up, here we are today, First week before the NFL season, first day after an NFL game, we're of course talking about Eagles and Falcons, but there's a funny thing going on. We're talking about another team quite often. A new team has joined the, hey, they're interesting crowd. Coming up, the most interesting teams in the NFL. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Support for the Will Cain Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying a home for a moment. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about that. They're calling it the power buying process. Here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they'll lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
We've been talking about where exactly is Matt Ryan in the quarterback pecking order, because my contention is he's closer to falling out of the top 10 than making it into the top 5. He's closer to Kirk Cousins than he is to Drew Brees. And one more year, one deciding factor, one good year by Carson Wentz, Deshaun Watson, Jimmy Garoppolo, Dak Prescott could threaten to push Matt Ryan down into the 10 to 15, closer to 15 range on quarterback rankings. And the reason why isn't because he was awful last night. The reason why is look back on his career. The problem is, while he was a league MVP, that year is the outlier. 2016 is the aberration. And by the way, the creator of that aberration just took off to San Francisco a year ago. The creator of that aberration is now guiding Jimmy Garoppolo's career. Kyle Shanahan is responsible for that 2016 year by Matt Ryan. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive's Home Insurance. Get your quote at progressive.com today. The other day, I was talking with the guys. Cerruti's running the show today. Nuno's riding shotgun, and Spence is on the board. Bubba's on his 363rd day off over the last 2 years. And we were talking about, man, you know what? We sure do talk a lot of Browns. Somebody said, have the Browns become interesting? And the answer was yes. All of us. We're into it. We're into the story in Cleveland. Obviously, we're into Hard Knocks, but it's not just that. Can the Browns get off the mat? Can they win more than one game in 2 years? Can Hugh Jackson save his job? Can Baker Mayfield be the savior? Sooner or later, can Baker Mayfield do what he did in Cleveland or do what he did in Oklahoma up in Cleveland? Now, I heard Dan Le Batard talking about this as well. The Browns are interesting, and that got me thinking, well, I'm sure if you've listened to this show or any other show on ESPN or any sports network for that matter, it does sometimes feel repetitive. Like, why do you guys always talk about the Cowboys? Why do you guys always talk about the Patriots? Why don't you spend a little more time talking Jags? And the truth of the matter is this. There are just some teams more interesting than others. There are some teams, no matter what, may it be the logo or the star, that people care about and we talk about and you want to listen to news about. That's just the way it is. So we started just back enveloping it. Who's interesting? Who could you not give a damn about? Who's at the top and who's at the bottom of the most interesting charts? So we'll put together a little chart here. Here, I think, are the most interesting teams in the NFL. And we're going to say there is an element of consistency. There is an element of longevity to this list, but there's also some new players. And I give you the team we were just talking about. But first, at number 5, I think the Los Angeles Rams are absolutely fascinating this year. Can Goff do it again? Is that defense going to be suffocating? How good will the Rams be? At number 4 is the Cleveland Browns. I think we're going to be talking Cleveland Browns all year. It's hard to explain. Maybe it's the whole, it's hard to look away from a car wreck scenario. Or maybe it's the rebound story. Maybe it's the against all odds story. Maybe it's the flashy Baker Mayfield. Maybe it's just Hard Knocks. But we're into the Browns. At number 3, the Philadelphia Eagles, defending champions, are interesting. At number 2, it's no hard prediction that the New England Patriots are always in the news. Tom Brady's career, his potentially laughable cliff, the drama between Belichick and Brady and Kraft. It promises to go nowhere. We're going to be talking Patriots, and you're going to be into the Patriots. And at number 1, the most interesting team in the NFL is the still reigning champion. The most interesting team year in, year out. And that's the Dallas Cowboys. They are America's team for a reason. Now, I know you want to hate me for that.
Way to go out on a limb there.
Well, what are you saying? That's obvious?
No, it's not obvious. It's obvious you would do this. It's not obvious that they're the most interesting team in the NFL.
All right, well, let me help you with your insults and cliches. When you say, way to go out on a limb there, that means something was safe. If you wanted to say, like, didn't see that one coming, or that wasn't predictable, that's how you insult me that way. But going out on a limb means, I pick something obvious and safe.
It's obvious and safe for you, right? No, no one's shocked that the Cowboys are number 1 on your list.
It's not just my list. Let me tell you something, Nuno. What? Go ahead. Who is that?
No, I think Cerruti wants in on this.
I do, because
what?
I feel like this is the least interesting the Cowboys have been in some time. Like, nobody's talking about the Cowboys.
Well, this is how you get suckered in, honestly. You get suckered in. Yeah. I got into this debate on First Take. Yeah, I'm going to fill you in. Don't worry. I got into this debate on First Take because Aaron Rodgers had the unmitigated gall to come out yesterday and said he feels like the Green Bay Packers are now America's team.
Heard it.
He said several teams. Yeah, well, you should. Because he said, by the way, also, he said several teams come and go and have claimed that title, but I feel like we, with the Packers, represent America's team now. Let me explain something, okay? First of all, America's team is not a feeling. It's a mantra. It's a nickname. It's owned by one team. Because you know what? It doesn't come and go. It's not a fleeting prospect. It's not several teams that have claim to it. It is uniquely and specifically and solely the Dallas Cowboys. Now, why? For the same reason they're the most interesting team year in, year out. The highest rated games every year. Mediocre or not, Cerruti. Whether or not they're good, they're bad, or interesting to you, the highest rated team year in, year out. Most sellouts. Most longest consecutive stadium sellouts. Merchandising. Value of the franchise. Star power. Every step of the way, it adds up. You can tell me one thing. You can say, Will, your Super Bowl prediction is going to laugh and fall on your face on this, or whatever it may be. You can do that stuff, but you can't tell me they're not interesting. I've got the quantifiable data to back up. America's team is interesting.
They're interesting because they have a lot of fans. That's all you're saying. So there are a lot of fans that root for the Cowboys, but that doesn't make the team interesting.
If there's a lot of people interested in them, that would suggest they're interesting.
They're yes, but I don't think, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing exciting about them. They're actually pretty boring. The only reason that we talk about them is because they have a large following, right? Like, there are many more, like, the Browns, I would say, are way more interesting than the Cowboys. I think the Vikings are more interesting than the Cowboys. You had them on the list as well. The Rams are obviously way more interesting than the Cowboys.
This is
what about ridiculous. The Steelers might even be more interesting than the Cowboys with the Le'Veon Bell situation.
You're just trolling me now. I'm giving you quantifiable data. You're giving me your subjective interpretation of who's interesting. I'm telling you the way it is. You're telling me the way you wish it would be. I'll tell you what. Coming up next, we'll bring in a former Cowboy to even this out, make it a little more objective. And I'm going to give you the 5 least interesting teams in the NFL. The ones that no matter what they do. And again, I'm not passing value judgment. I'm the objective one here. I'm not giving you my opinion. I'm telling you the way it is. You go to Cerruti and Nuno for the slant. I give you the facts and let you decide. I'm going to tell you who are the least interesting teams according to America. Next, in the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Did you know ADT can design and install a smart home just for you? A new smart home at your service, customized for your lifestyle. ADT professionals can even show you how to use your new smart home features. Now, that's what I call warm-up service. It's all controlled from the ADT app or the sound of your voice and backed by 24/7 protection. Visit ADT.com/smart to learn more about how ADT can help keep your home safe and smart.
It apparently hurts a lot of feelings that I tell you the Cowboys are the most interesting team in the NFL. So, in order to even that out, in order to salve your wounds, to get us back on the right foot, let me just do this for you. I'll attempt to get it more objective and bring a counter voice in here. 3-time Super Bowl champion of the Dallas Cowboys in studio, giving us Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. What's up, Darren Woodson?
I'm great. How you doing? How are you?
I'm doing well.
Yeah,
I'm good. You can tell.
We give a neutral voice on that comment you've already made, huh? I'm the neutral voice.
Yeah, that's right. Look, man, somebody gets mad at you, you just lean right back into it. I can't control the people's feelings. It's not my responsibility how somebody else feels. I'm not out here trying to make friends. I'm trying to tell truths.
Okay.
Speaking of that, Darren, let me do this. Let's not start with the Cowboys. Let's start with the Seahawks. There's this fascinating article up on SI.com by Robert Klemko about the relationships inside that locker room, the way that Pete Carroll treated Russell Wilson. And it's basically obvious he treated Russell differently than everybody else there. Here's a quote, an anonymous one from a Seahawk. He protected him, meaning Carroll protected Wilson, and we hated that. Anytime he effed up, Pete would never say anything, not in a team meeting, not publicly, never. If Russ had a terrible game, he would always talk about how resilient he was. And we're like, what the F are you talking about? That's when guys really started to notice the lack of accountability. Now, here's what I want to ask you, Darren. I'll never forget your coach in the 90s. I'll never forget Jimmy Johnson and the idea that, you know what, life's not fair and not everybody gets treated the same. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you're 53rd on the roster, you don't get the same leash that Troy Aikman does. So I don't think it's fair to ask for fairness, right? I don't think the Seahawks should think everybody should be treated like Wilson.
Absolutely. Go ahead. Listen, my first couple of weeks with the Dallas Cowboys coming in 1992, Jimmy Johnson had that. This is before training camp. He had that same conversation with the entire team in my rookie year and basically said, listen, I'm not going to treat Troy Aikman like I treat a 7th-round pick. Troy walks in late. Well, I need Troy on Sunday. You walk in late as a 7th-round pick, you're cut. That's how it works. And if you're a guy that's even a 1st-round pick, if your name isn't Aikman, we're not going to treat you the same. And that's just how, it's not just in football. That's just how life works. You basically base everything off of value. How much value do I have in that position? A lot of it, most of the time, especially when he's the face of the franchise, you cannot treat him the same way you treat everybody else. And that's just a part of it. Now, I get it where the Seattle Seahawks are coming from because, hell, I've been there. I've seen quarterbacks being treated with gloves and all. But again, I go right back to that. But when you look at the Seattle Seahawks locker room, they're full of alpha dogs. They're full of guys that feel like, there's a lot of different personalities in that locker room, always have. When you talk about Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas and Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett. I mean, a lot of those guys feel like they should be treated the same way as Russell Wilson, especially because of the fact that 90% of those guys got there before Russell got there, and they went and they bled through some bad years. So, yeah, they want to be treated the right way, but it's just not how it is in this league. And Pete Carroll is not to blame for it. It's just the reality. And I'm sure Richard Sherman going over to San Francisco is going to feel the same way when he sees Jimmy G have a bad game and he gets treated with gloves. That's just a part of it in this league.
Yeah, but Darren, okay, it obviously worked for you guys in Dallas, and it worked for a little while in Seattle as well. But on the other side of that coin, the other example is, of course, what goes on in New England.
Yeah.
And by all reports, it's that Belichick puts Brady's tape up there looking for lowlights, takes a good game and says, let me find the 3 mistakes, and just berates him or humiliates him in front of the team, forcing accountability down the food chain. So is the lesson here, Darren, that there are many different ways to win and there are many different ways to lead?
Absolutely.
Or is there something else that we're missing?
And I guarantee you, if I looked at all 32 teams, that's that one team. I mean, I'm just saying, Matt Ryan, you saw Quinn's interview after the game yesterday about Matt Ryan, who for all purposes, stunk it up in the red zone again. didn't have a lot of arm strength, didn't do those type of things. And there's a lot of quarterbacks that go through this, but you rarely hear, or even in the locker room circles. And this is not the first time I've heard this. I've heard this a million times over the years in separate locker rooms. Quarterbacks are treated differently. And I get it. Belichick has been with Brady. Belichick's the guy who brought Brady in. And they've had this special relationship, but you see the cracks now. You're starting to see the cracks as far as Brady saying, hey, look, enough is enough. I'm tired of it. I know you've been doing it forever and ever, but at some point it's got to go. And I don't see a lot of other teams that are like this. I mean, I don't see how a lot of teams that are like as controversial and as straightforward as Bill Belichick is with Brady. You just don't see it often.
Okay, so what you're talking to Darren Woodson here on the Will Cain Show. So what you're telling me is most teams actually are like the Seahawks. Most teams
absolutely
are teams.
How is Ron Rivera
Belichick
treating
and the Patriots?
How is Ron Rivera treating Cam Newton?
Right,
gloves.
Right.
I mean, it's just
right.
It's how is Peyton treating Drew Brees? Probably with gloves.
But wait, Darren, isn't this? There's something else though. Okay, treating people differently, treating people unfairly is par for the course. That's how what you're telling me 31 teams do it. But what I'm picking up that these former Seahawks are putting down, it's not just that you treat us differently, but it's you didn't hold Russell accountable.
Yep.
And I would think that's huge. That's different than just being unfair.
Yeah, it's one thing to be held accountable in public, which most defensive players and offensive players are held in public, like next to your peers when they're correcting you or there's criticism, coaches come at you in a different way and they may say things openly in front of people. But that's probably didn't happen in Seattle. Maybe they didn't handle it that way. And sometimes, man, it just takes it. Sometimes you just got to know who you're dealing with as well. And if your quarterback could handle those type of things. And evidently Pete Carroll didn't feel that way. And if you've been, listen, 3 years ago, John Gruden and I went to the Seattle Seahawks locker room. And we did a camp deal with them. We went to camp and we did this Sports Center camp deal with the Seattle Seahawks. That is a different group. They are in your face. They are all the way alpha dog. There's music pumping, like heavy rap music pumping throughout the day. Guys are saying what they want. There's always some hostility during practice. That's the kind of vibe that they have. Now, everyone's like that on that football field. Everyone's like that in the locker room. Everyone's like that on the practice field. But Russell Wilson is not like that. They don't treat him that way. They don't put him in there with those dogs. That's just not how it happens. And that's the way Pete Carroll's running ship.
All right, one last question for you, Darren Woodson, here on the Will Cain Show. You talked about Matt Ryan's performance last night. We all saw it, completing less than 50% of his passes. Wasn't good. Here's the simple question. Is Matt Ryan a top 10 quarterback in this league right now?
Look, I've always said, and I've been saying it for the last 5 years, I've always felt like Matt Ryan, just a couple of years ago, he was, the MVP of the league. So, yes, I've felt like he's a top 10, top 5 quarterback in this league the last few years. Now, what concerns me about Matt Ryan is his arm strength. That's and I get it. They're struggling in the plus 20. They're struggling to get the ball to Julio Jones as far as touchdowns are concerned. And there's some issues as far as the game plan, in my opinion. I don't think they're as balanced as a football team as we would like to see them as far as a running game. And a lot of that falls on Matt Ryan. But my concern with him more than anything, and we saw it in the deep ball that he threw yesterday to Julio Jones down the field, he has to put everything on it to get the ball downfield. I'm talking he's rearing back. And when he's throwing that deep ball, it's not like he's throwing it on stride. Every deep ball is like a struggle. It's like it has to be a great catch by the wide receiver instead of hitting him on stride. I think there's some arm strength issues that we haven't been talking about. I think that some of the play calling can be questionable. I think they can do some things to help him out. But right now, man, I mean, everything's falling on Matt Ryan because we've been saying this for the longest time. They have so much personnel, good personnel, quality personnel. Why aren't they winning the big games?
All right, man, I got to run. Good stuff, Darren. Always enjoy seeing you.
Thanks, bro.
Take care, man. All right, that's Darren Woodson here on the Will Cain Show. You just heard Darren bring up that deep ball to Julio Jones. Let's actually talk about that pass. Was it a catch? And has the NFL figured out exactly what a catch is yet in 2018? That and the 5 least interesting teams in the NFL. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Coming up, my least interesting teams in the NFL, more likely America's least interesting teams in the NFL. But first, let's discuss what's a catch and what we should be doing in the NFL about defining what a catch is. You just heard Darren Woodson reference a deep ball by Matt Ryan to Julio Jones last night during the Eagles-Falcons game. It was juggled by Julio Jones, who spun in the air, landed on his back, and slid. He slid, eventually coming to a stop with his shoulders out of bounds. The referee signaled that he was juggling the ball the entire time and never really established possession before he went out of bounds. Now, everybody watching, everybody on Twitter, everybody thought it was a catch, that Jones had secured the ball. It never touched the ground, and he had been inbounds and established the ball before he hit the sideline. I'm in that group. I thought it was a catch, but it was called incomplete on the field. Then it was sent upstairs for review. After review, it was confirmed, the call on the field was confirmed that it was not a catch. And I had two different thoughts in this process. Number one, we still don't know what a catch is. We still have trouble establishing it in the NFL in 2018, and that has to be a catch. But number two, I like that the replay officials in the process of replay deferred to the call on the field. This is the way it was supposed to be. You were supposed to be deferential to the action, to the man on the field. You were supposed to, without conclusive evidence, leave the call on the field before you overturn it. I don't like the idea that every play sent to replay is starting anew. Every play is a fresh review. Every play is an opportunity for some eye in the sky, some omnipotent god of refereeing to come in and tell us exactly what it was that happened, despite what we saw or what the referee saw on the field. Now, I put this out last night, and a lot of people came back to me and said, okay, so you're okay with imperfection. You're okay with it being wrong. No, what I'm okay with is allowing for some fallibility in the game in order to keep it moving, in order to keep action going on the field, to allow that there were things happening on the field and you can't review every play and get every single one of them absolutely correct. What more, when everything was going up to the booth, when everything was starting afresh and it could go either way in the replay, it wasn't like they were getting it right then anyway. Half the time it'd go to replay and we'd wonder, what the hell is the replay referee looking at? What's the definition? Do I need a legal textbook? Do I need a different angle that you have that I don't have? What happened was replay didn't prove to be the thing which you hope it was. Perfection. Replay didn't give us what was obvious to the naked eye. Replay was just further confusion. And I'm okay with a set of terms, a relationship that's nailed down and established that sometimes produces something incorrect, but at least can be somewhat predictable. You should go with the call on the field unless there's absolutely conclusive proof on the video that the call on the field was incorrect. I think that's the new nature of replay in the NFL. I think week one, game one, it looks like that's what they hope to establish. Defer to the referees on the field. Now, you can come back to me and say, but there was conclusive proof. You can come back to me and say, it's obvious Julio Jones caught that ball. And you might be right. I think he caught it. That's my judgment. I do think there was a few frames missing where you could go, I don't know. Was it pinned in that one moment? There was a few frames missing where you could create essentially reasonable doubt and then defer to the call on the field. But what I'm telling you is in the long run, this is better. So job well done by the Eagles last night, winning the NFL season opener over the Falcons. Job well done on the Will Cain Show is brought to you by Napa Auto Parts. With quality parts and know-how, Napa Auto Parts can help you keep your ride running longer, stronger. That's Napa know-how. Who are the least interesting teams in the NFL? A little bit earlier in the show, I gave you who I thought were the 5 most interesting teams that you're going to hear about on national radio, on national TV, that you're going to see on national television on Sundays and Mondays and Thursday nights. They're going to get the biggest ratings. Here are the 5 teams that no matter what they do, no matter how good they are, nobody just gives a damn. Either it's the market, the uniforms, or the stars. You just can't get the attention you want. Here you go. At number 5, I understand they're good, and I understand they have a promising young quarterback. But the Tennessee Titans are not interesting. Nobody can measure up or muster up enough care for the Tennessee Titans. At number 4, the Buffalo Bills. The truth of the matter is, Josh Allen's the most interesting thing up there, and he's not even on the field. At number 3, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, with or without Jameis Winston. I'll tell you one thing. The NFL was better before everybody moved to the USFL version of their uniforms. The orange sickle uniforms for Tampa Bay with the pirate hiking the ball, go back to that. That's more interesting than this USFL uniform you got running out now. At number 2, the Miami Dolphins just seem to be going nowhere with nobody. And the least interesting team in the NFL, no matter what they can do, is the Arizona Cardinals. We'll see if Josh Rosen and all his hot takes can change that, but for now, it's just hard to turn a Cardinals game on and go, yeah, this is going to be fun. Coming up is the Falcons offensive coordinator, Steve Sarkisian, the reason Matt Ryan looks so bad. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Support for the Will Cain Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying a home for a moment. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about that. They're calling it the power buying process. Here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they'll lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now, here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
This is the Will Cain Podcast on ESPN Radio.
You ever had a buddy that took a job and you're like, outwardly happy for him? Yay. But on the inside, you're thinking, man, that's a dead-end job. I don't know what town you're from, but you ever have that one spot, that one restaurant that no matter what moved in, no matter what chain, no matter what hometown restaurant, everything failed, it was cursed? What's the dead-end job? What's the cursed programs in college football? That's coming up on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80. And you can watch me talk on ESPN News. You can also join the conversation, 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. We'll talk about what those dead programs are in college football. We'll also talk about Nick Foles, who made $500,000 last night. He made $250,000 for starting and another $250,000 for winning for the Philadelphia Eagles. But is everything peachy keen? Is everything green up there in Philadelphia? Well, let's start on the Falcons side of the ball. The Atlanta Falcons lose to the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFL opener 18-12. The offense that includes Julio Jones, Tevin Coleman, Deonta Freeman, and yes, Matt Ryan could only put up 12 inept points. Why? In order to answer that, let's go to Warren Sharp, who does predictive analytics and data for SharpFootballAnalysis.com. He joins me now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, brought to you by Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Warren, I saw you on Twitter. I heard about it. You had some harsh thoughts, some harsh words for Atlanta Falcons offensive coordinator Steve Sarkisian. So let's start with this. If you're looking at last night's performance on the offensive side of the ball, do you put more blame on Matt Ryan or Steve Sarkisian?
Well, thanks for having me, first of all. And I think it's pretty much evenly split. It'd be really hard for me to so often coordinators are really tightly linked with quarterbacks, and I think such is the case here. And actually, Matt Ryan's career has been similar. But Ryan did not play very well, but he was very successful with a lot of what he was doing when he was targeting Julio Jones. So there was definite things that Sark was doing that were impressive. I felt he progressed a little bit from the prior year, some of his play calling between the 20s. and Matt Ryan was able to execute some of that. But to everybody apart from Julio, the chemistry just did not seem there. Ryan's ball fluttered. It did not look crisp. All the plays down at the goal line, in the end zone, in the red zone, were just horrendous. I mean, that was mostly on Sarkisian, except for there was a touchdown pass that he missed to Devonta Freeman. So I don't think you can dislink the two. They're very interconnected here as terms of taking blame for this.
Talking to Warren Sharp here on the Will Cain Show. So, Warren, if I said to you, give me the maybe 2 or 3 cardinal sins or biggest mistakes that you saw from Steve Sarkisian last night. I saw you lay a couple out on Twitter, how he called run plays, whatever it may be in the red zone. Tell me, just give me 2 or 3 examples of this is where Sarkisian is failing the Falcons.
Number one, it's his red zone play calling in general. He was horrific with it last year, and that's carried forward to this year. And the issue one key example is the jumbo personnel that he was utilizing on the field. And what jumbo basically means is you're pulling off your receivers and you're going with 3 tight ends and 2 running backs, like a fullback and a standard running back. You got Matt Ryan under center, and everything is ultra compressed. All the linemen are very tightly bunched, so the defense knows that there's a high percentage that these guys are actually going to run the football. So when the defense knows what you're going to do ahead of time, it's the worst position for you to be in as an offense. And he did that 2 different plays at the goal line. He did on 2nd down and came back on 4th down, the same exact thing with the same exact result. Did not get a touchdown. And if you look at the league-wide metrics from running the football down near the goal line, the run rate when you're in 0 wide receivers out on the field, 86% of the time. So like I said, most of the time teams are going to run. The success rate on those rushes is only a 38% success rate, 38%. If you put 2 wide receivers on the field to spread out the defense a little bit, your success rate jumps when you run the football from 38% all the way up to 73%. It's insane how much more effective it is to run the football when you spread out the defense. But Sarkisian was using these jumbo formations down there. And another thing that he was doing is too much running on 1st and 10. The run rate on 1st and 10 was way too high. They didn't average a very good success rate. Teams in the league need to be throwing the football a lot more on 1st and 10. But Sarkisian called 55% runs. The best teams in the league, the teams that went to the postseason last year, if you look at most of those teams, like the top 7 or 8, all were leading the league in passing rate on 1st downs. And it wasn't just teams that had good quarterbacks. It was teams like the Eagles with Carson Wentz, who had a terrible 2016 season. They came back in 2017 and threw the ball a lot. You look at Jared Goff for the Rams, horrible rookie year in 2016, comes back last year, and his offensive coordinator, Sean McVay, trusts him to throw the football a lot, and they did, and they had a lot of success. You don't have to have a great quarterback, but you can't be afraid to utilize your quarterback on 1st down to throw the football. It's the most efficient time for a quarterback to throw the football is on 1st and 10, where the defense doesn't know what you're going to do. And unfortunately, Sarkisian went 55% run in the first half.
That's fascinating. Truly. It's Warren Sharp here on the Will Cain Show. You can check out his stuff at sharpfootballanalysis.com. Last question for you, Warren. You're going to go into these statistics way more deeply than I am, but when I look at, for example, Pro Football Reference, and I look at Matt Ryan's career, there's a decade worth of yearly statistics here. That MVP year, that 2016 year with Kyle Shanahan, it's the outlier. It's the anomaly. The vast majority of years look like 26 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, something like that. So going forward, is Matt Ryan the guy we've seen 9 out of 10 years, or the guy that we saw in that MVP year?
No, I think you're dead on to the fact that he is not the guy that you saw in that MVP year where he averaged 9.3 yards per attempt. No other season has he averaged above 7.9. So, I mean, it was ridiculous. His touchdown rate was up to 7.1%, which was obviously well above league average and better than anything that he's done in any year before or since. Look, Kyle Shanahan is a special coordinator. What they were able to do that year against the number 2 most difficult schedule of opposing pass defenses, but post like the most efficient passing offense, the way that they were throwing the football to their running backs, the way that they were utilizing their tight ends, maximizing Julio Jones, tacking the defense deep down the field. So many of the things that they did were schematic and intelligent play calling from doing things on different downs, like early downs. We're going to, on 1st and 10, we're going to actually target Julio deeper down the field. There's a lot of things that they were doing that, fortunately, Steve Sarkisian is not doing, and he probably will never do.
All right, good stuff, Warren. We'll be checking you out on Twitter, and you can find his stuff again at sharpfootballanalysis.com. It's Warren Sharp here on The Will Cain Show. Thanks, Warren.
Thanks for having me.
So, listen, what's the worst program in college football? What's the one where you had a buddy who's a college football coach and you're like, I don't know where you go from there, man. I don't know how you win. The worst program in college football. Next, The Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Support for the Will Cain Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying a home for a moment. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about that. They're calling it the power buying process. Here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they'll lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now, here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Don't take that job. It's a dead-end job. What's the worst jobs in college football? The worst programs. Let's keep it to the Power 5 conference. Don't bring me your New Mexico States or your UTEPs. Let's stick to the Power 5. Please, buddy. Don't take that job. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and ESPN News. We'll get to that in just a moment. But first, let's go to Dave in West Virginia. What's up, Dave? You're on the Will Cain Show.
Hey, Will, let me tell you something. Enjoy your show, man. You got me irritated with the top 5 of the teams that you're most interesting. And I have to be, there's 2 teams that stick out that I believe, for one, should not be on there is the Browns. I don't understand why you wouldn't put Pittsburgh or Green Bay there before you put the Browns. Also, I know you're a fan of the Dallas Cowboys, and that's great. But you know what? You're also a professional. You have them number 1. Really, number 1, are they so much more interesting? And even the other teams, say you had Green Bay and Pittsburgh in there, even with the other teams, New England and all the other ones in there, why would they be number 1? Explain that to me, please.
All right, thanks for the call, Dave. The reason I'm going to explain to you both the Cleveland Browns and the Dallas Cowboys. Let's start with the Dallas Cowboys. The reason I put the Cowboys at number 1 was out of sheer and utter, unadulterated, mainlining professionalism. I appreciate you talking about my professionalism. I pride myself on it. I gave you that out of 100% pure, snort it straight objectivity. Okay? No homerism, no fandom, and I've got everything in the world to back it up. All right? I've got merchandise sales, franchise values, ratings. I've got sellout records. I've got week in, week out, top-rated games. I've got the most interesting owner in the NFL. I've got a logo that is known not just across the country, but worldwide. I've got the fact that you could walk into any neighborhood in London and ask them, hey, who are the Pittsburgh Steelers? Or, hey, who are the Dallas Cowboys? And I can, with 100%, put $100,000 down on it, guarantee which name recognition is going to matter and resonate. I know, by the way, just to further nail this coffin down into the professionalism category here, I know what the definition of interesting is. And set aside my fandom, man. I check all the boxes. Every single one of them. 1 through 10. Probably come around the horn and start checking them a second time on my way back down. Now, I agree the Packers are interesting. Mostly because of Aaron Rodgers. And I agree the Steelers are interesting. Right now, mostly because of Le'Veon Bell's drama. They're right on the outside of the top 5. By the way, for what it's worth, so the Minnesota Vikings. I'll be locked in watching how that experiment with Kirk Cousins goes. As to the Browns. Man, the Browns are interesting. The Browns just, I don't know if it's Hard Knocks. I don't know if it's getting off the mat. I don't know if it's your Steelers fandom can't take it that people like and talk about the Browns right now. I don't know if it's Baker Mayfield. But I know this. I'm not alone. People are into the Browns. Let's just do a quick poll within the studio. Let's go around the horn. Let's start with Spence, who's filling in for Bubba today. Spence, do you find the Browns interesting this year?
Oh, yeah. Big time. Lots of talent. Obviously, the Hard Knocks effect. You automatically think that these teams are going to go like 16-0 once you watch Hard Knocks.
Sort of was looking for a yes or no answer, but I understand I gave you the mic there and you wanted to take your moment. That's all right. Nuno, do you find the Browns interesting?
Yes.
Look at that. Look at that professional. Turn his mic right back off. Cerruti, do you find the Browns interesting?
I do, yes.
I think that's what's called 100% approval rating. I think that's 100% the vote. Look, I'm being serious now.
But, yeah.
It's a small sample size, but you can't extrapolate. I learned that in politics. There's a certain threshold you get to that you can extrapolate from. And I believe the answer is 4 when it comes to Cleveland Browns are interesting. In all seriousness, man, Hard Knocks was fun. It was really good. The Browns were good, and I can't decide who was the biggest star. It was probably Bob Wiley, the offensive line coach with the animated belly, the belly that probably can speak, that has its own personality, but it might be Todd Haley. And I think it's an underrated moment when early in the show, he's just riffing in practice talking about defensive end Carl Nassib. Carl Nassib sadly didn't make the team, but he's joined another uninteresting team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he says, Carl. Who names their kid Carl? He's like, can you imagine? Look at our baby. He's so cute. Gucci, Gucci, goo, Carl. He's just crushing Carl Nassib on his old man's name. And he's right. And he's grumpy. He's only exceeded by. He's only more grumpy. He only gets beat in the grumpy rankings by Greg Williams, who honestly isn't grumpy. He's just a jerk. He's the defensive coordinator. And just in a complete jerk contest, Greg Williams is going to win the jerk contest between Todd Haley and Greg Williams. No offense, Greg. I think you know it, by the way. And it comes back around where Carl's making fun of the name Todd. And that brings me to a man, Cerruti, who has a problem with the name Todd. Now, what's wrong with the name Todd, Cerruti?
I think of a Todd, I think of like, I don't know, kind of a bro-y dude, maybe wears cutoff t-shirts. I don't know. Todd's not a baby's name. Todd's not a name that you like have a child and go, yeah, this is cute. This is our cute baby Todd. How do you not see that?
But it's not an old man's name either.
It's like a middle-aged, it's like a 30s to 40s, like I said, cutoff t-shirt guy's name. It's not a baby. It's not an old man. It's a very specific time in your life name. Like you should only have that name in a 10-year period.
What's the 10-year period? From what age to what
30
age?
to 40 maybe? I don't know. Todd.
That's where you picked your Todds?
Yeah. Todd might have a barbed wire tattoo on his arm.
Do you think Todds are the male version of Jennifer? Like Jennifer was a 1980s name. That was the fad name. You don't see many babies running around today with the name Jennifer. Jennifer was a thing for people my age, right? Do you see a lot of babies named Todd today, or most Todds my age?
I know. I went to school with a guy named Todd. That's the only Todd. That's the youngest Todd I know, and he's probably my age, and I'm 29. So I don't know any younger Todds.
Todd. I thought between the battle between Carl and Todd beat Carl in the name making fun of. Mark from Texas. You're on the Will Cain Show. What's up, Mark?
Hey. Will, are you like trying to do your best impression of Where's Waldo? Because you are all over the map this week. I don't know, brother. First of all, hey, Cerruti, you're absolutely right. My middle name is Todd, and that's what I usually go by. You're absolutely right. Back to you, Will. Brother.
All right.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
Okay, now, first of all, I agree with you on Cleveland being one of the most interesting. But I just need to know, you said something earlier that got me tripping. Like, where in the world are you going to get this magical fleet of unicorns to bring the L.A. Chargers and the Cowboys to the Super Bowl? That I gotta know that. And then the thing with the referees, and you would rather deal with the referees than look at the eye in the sky. Don't lie. Humans are full of error. I mean, you gotta have some backup. I just don't understand, bro. You're all over the map, brother. You got to reel me in on these ones. Come on.
All right. Well, man, thanks for the call, Mark. I mean, I have been sick. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. I mean, I may have been a little off my game this week. I mean, like in the short term and the small stuff, not on the big stuff. Cowboys, Chargers, lock it in. Eye in the sky. The problem with that is we don't have a problem with referees making mistakes. We have a problem with the idea that you're going to achieve perfection and then you make mistakes. Replay was fool's gold, man. It was sold to us as perfection, and it proved to be anything but. It was fool's gold. But as to whether or not, I'm off my game this week, I don't know. You can hear it, I'm back to that sexy voice again, I'm back to sick. I just saw a Twitter post by my man Marcus Spears, who works for the SEC Network. Big fan of Marcus's work. I just saw this, Rudy. Marcus is rolling through airports now and on the airplane with the mask, the bird flu mask, the doctor's mask, And he says, I'm not getting sick. Right. That's a bold move. Like, are you in hypochondriac territory if you're doing that? Or are you just smart? Do I need to start rolling with a mask when I fly?
I mean, no disrespect to Marcus. I don't know if that's smart. I think I would definitely judge that person if they were in the airport. I'd be like, what are you doing? But, I mean, airports are gross, but just, I don't know. I'd rather get sick than wear that mask, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm not ready for that either. I'll tell you what. Let's revisit this. Let's also revisit who was the worst program in Power 5 college football. What's a dead-end job? Plus, we got some big games this weekend. We got South Carolina, Georgia. You need to tune in for that. Presented by Dr. Pepper. Coverage begins at 2:30 Eastern Time on ESPN Radio, ESPNradio.com, and the ESPN app. Let's talk a little college football. Let's do it with my man Ian Fitzsimmons. Next in the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Did you know ADT can design and install a smart home just for you? A new smart home at your service, customized for your lifestyle. ADT's automation even unlocks the front door for friends who arrive at your place early for the game while you're still out getting snacks. Now that's what I call game day service. It's all controlled from the ADT app or the sound of your voice and backed by 24/7 protection. Visit ADT.com/smart to learn more about how ADT can help keep your home safe and smart.
Talk a little college football with beloved P1 of the Will Cain Show, part-time Will Cain Show fact checker, full-time one half of Freddie and Fitzsimmons on ESPN Radio. It's Ian Fitzsimmons on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. By the way, Ian's going to be on the sidelines tomorrow for Georgia, South Carolina on ESPN Radio. A lot of people don't know this, but see, when I'm just doing my job, every once in a while I'll get a call from somebody like, I don't know, Gary in Tulsa, or, I don't know, Freddie or Frank in Peoria, who wants to give me something that I forgot or I got wrong, or to prod me along or poke me. But we know only one guy talks like this with this accent. No matter what disguise or fake mustache you put on, you can't change that voice, Fitzsimmons. We know it's you.
Again, first time, long time. Well, look, Sweet Tea's been around for a long time there, my friend. So if you want to go back to one of those fact-checking episodes, 1982, coming out from Weaning Yearlings on Tautog Farm in Folsom, Louisiana, Dad comes in, throws down a Bud Heavy. Mama Fitz throwing down Sweet Tea. Been around for a long time, my friend. How are we doing? What do you got? What do you got, son? What do you know? What do you have?
This is what I got. This is what I want to ask you. Let's talk about the games this weekend, including the game you're going to be standing on the sidelines for. But I want to ask you this. I'm going to lay this out in a little bit, Fitz. I was thinking about it. I know exactly when I started thinking about it. Oh, it was about when Nicholls State had that final whistle blow against Kansas this past weekend. I got to thinking, man, what's the worst job in college football? Like, what's the one where you just can't win? And I'm not talking about that one-season aberration where you get to go to the Orange Bowl. I'm talking about where year in, year out, decade after decade, your level that water finds, our man Booger McFarland likes to always say that, water finds its level. Well, the level you find is at about a 200 winning percentage. So what do you think it is, Fitz? What's the worst jobs? What's the worst programs in Power 5 college football?
Well, right now, Kansas is right there, and Coach Beatty is one of the nicest guys you're ever going to meet. Maybe that's the problem, because he was a great colonel going back to his days at Texas A&M and everywhere he's been. But it's hard to win there, man. I mean, Mangino did, as you're referencing with that Orange Bowl W, and I think they finished top 5 that year. I think maybe even 4th in the country. But that's a place right now that is just in the inner rings of Dante's Inferno when it comes to trying to build a winner in college football. But you've seen other programs be resurrected. What Bill Snyder did at Kansas State is nothing short of remarkable, not once but twice. And so it can be done. But I'm just saying that same state and giving an example. What Matt Campbell right now is doing at Iowa State, we've seen blips, right, but not sustained. And Matty Campbell, man, he's got the Cyclones kind of on a rise, and he's one of those hot names last season after what he did that decided to stick and stay. So you get the right guy in, I think you can win anywhere, but it has to be the right guy. And, again, Coach Beatty at Kansas, I mean, he is one of the nicest human beings you're ever going to meet, and he's a good football man. But it also takes the right guy to do it, and I think Kansas, a place like that, because I think to answer your question, that's number one to me. You got to go find a 30, 31-year-old go-getter that doesn't give a bleep, right? And that's the kind of guy you have to try and go find in order to win there. I think that's number one in my book right now.
I hear you on the 30, 31-year-old go-getter who doesn't give a bleep, but as you were talking, I started thinking, first of all, you're right about what Matt Campbell's doing at Iowa State. That's the blip on the radar, though, right now. That's not Iowa State's level. And a lot of programs have that blip on the radar. Duke's had that blip on the radar. A lot of them have that one or two, as you just pointed out.
Hold on, Will. What David Cutcliffe has been able to do, that dude deserves a statue outside of that stadium.
Fine. Okay, fine.
Don't give me. I can see you. I can feel your look right now.
Wins.
I know. I can feel it.
Yeah. Okay, so he raised that level from 3 wins to 6. Okay, and he had some better years than that. I understand, but my point, Fitz, we're talking to Ian Fitzsimmons here, co-host of Freddie and Fitzsimmons on the Will Cain Show. My point is, you're right about the real resurrection. I mean, the change in fortunes, the change in identity, and what Bill Snyder did at Kansas State is exactly that. I'll give you another one, Fitz, but tell me this. After I give you this one, see if we can find a true resurrection beyond these two schools. How about this one? TCU. TCU was awful forever before Gary Patterson, and now consistently up there. Baylor had its blip with Briles, but now it's back down. I don't know outside of Kansas State and TCU if you can find one that's come up and stayed up.
It's hard, man, but I'll give you one, and I'm going to be there tomorrow. As a matter of fact, I'm here right now, and it's already medieval here in Columbia, South Carolina. Lou Holtz brought it up, right, and it went back down. Spurrier brought it up and averaged, 9.5 wins a season, which is remarkable for South Carolina. Then it went back down. Will Muschamp has come in and has changed his offensive philosophy from ground and pound as a defensive coordinator to turning the offense over to Brian McClendon, who's got deep Georgia roots as the Gamecocks get ready for the number 3 Georgia Bulldogs to be played right here tomorrow, 3:30 Eastern time on ESPN Radio. And Muschamp has got this program, again, back on the rise. If he were to stick and stay, this program in the mighty SEC and the SEC East could be that next program that you're talking about. What Gary Patterson took from Dennis Franchione and just took it to a whole nother level and sustained success while being nomads, that's probably – because remember, they went from the WAC to the Mountain West, right? I mean, and then finally got into the Big 12. I mean, they were conference nomads, and he still had them winning games. And it took him a couple of years with Big 12 recruiting, right, and have that Big 12 logo next to him to be able to be where he is right now. And now he's a perennial top 25 team, top 20 team for that matter. In Ohio State, you better buckle your chin strap next weekend when you come into Jerry World because the Horned Frogs are going to fight you. And they have a saying in their locker room, right? It's a great example by you, Will, of TCU. They have a saying that I can't remember the coach's name from the 1930s, where he says, we'll fight them till hell freezes over, and then we'll fight them on the damn ice. I mean, that's TCU right now. That's their motto, man. And they don't believe that's not even a motto. That's something they believe in. It's like intellectual brutality with Stanford, which one other program, like what David Shaw has continued with Jim Harbaugh. I mean, that wasn't one that was sustained success. So, to your point, if you're the lowest of the low right now, you can build a winner. You know, Harbaugh started it. Shaw continued. Fran started it. Gary Patterson took it to a whole other level, as Shaw has done. You know, Spurrier started it. I think Muschamp has a chance to do that very thing here in South Carolina.
For what it's worth, those aren't those 30, 31-year-old don't give a Fs. Those are Gary Patterson, Bill Snyder, Will Muschamp. Will Muschamp on his, second, third go-around. These are the guys who've gone through it already. Real quick, man, I'm down to a minute. I truly do respect your opinion, especially when it comes to college football. Talking to Ian Fitzsimmons of Freddie and Fitz. So in a minute, can I just ask you about 3 or 4 games? You tell me who you like?
Fire away, go.
All right. Let's start with Mississippi State and that Kansas State program right there. It's in Manhattan.
Boy, Herb Street we brought this up on the podcast, and Mama Needs Shoes. Go download the Herb Street and Fitzsimmons podcast, subscribe on the ESPN app. We appreciate you. He brought that up as his upset special. Kansas State catching 9 at the Little Apple. Beware, Mississippi State. Upset alert right there for the Bulldogs.
USC Stanford. That's that David Shaw program. USC going up to Stanford.
One of the most underrated rivalries in college football. Ben Gardner, remember him, 49 for Stanford, captain, had the mullet back in the day for the Stanford Cardinal. He said he hates USC with a passion. All Stanford football players hate USC. Talking to Porter Gustin last night on Freddie and Fitzsimmons, defensive end for USC, the hate is mutual. This is an underrated rivalry, but I think Stanford has too much for the men of Troy because of KJ Costello. They can chuck it now at Stanford. I like the Cardinal.
Okay, less than 30 seconds. You've already given us some background on it. Your game, Georgia, South Carolina.
Close, baby. I think South Carolina keeps it close, but Georgia, led by a remarkable young man in Jake Fromm, true sophomore quarterback, leads his team to the Natty last year, comes that close. They've got running backs to replace Michelle and Chubb. DeAndre Swift, Holyfield, two names to remember. Georgia I think gets it done, but close against South Carolina.
Good stuff, man. Really appreciate it. Enjoy your work. That's Ian Fitzsimmons of Freddie and Fitzsimmons. Thanks, Ian.
My man.
What did we learn about Nick Foles and the Eagles? We've talked a lot about Matt Ryan, the Falcons, but what about the other side? What about the guys in green? That's next on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. SiriusXM Channel 80. You can give me a call, 888-729-3776. We're going to be talking about what those dead programs in college football are, those worst jobs in the Power 5. Just talked about with our man Ian Fitzsimmons here. You can go get that on the Apple, iTunes, ESPN app podcast of the Will Cain Show. We'll revisit that, and I'm going to give you some of the worst programs in college football, the ones that just can't get off the mat. But let's return to the game last night. Philadelphia Eagles beat the Atlanta Falcons 18-12. We've talked extensively about who Matt Ryan really is. 2016 is MVP year. Well, that's the anomaly. That's the aberration. That's not who Matt Ryan is. Look at the rest of his career, the decade-odd plus. He's not a bad quarterback, but he's not a great quarterback. He's more Kirk Cousins than Drew Brees. He's more 10 to 15 than 1 to 5 range of quarterback rankings. But on the other side of the ball, we have to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. It cannot be overstated. That's a huge win for the Eagles against what many expect to be a good team. I got to tell you, that's the kind of win that makes me concerned about the Eagles. Now, here's the weird thing. I don't think the Eagles were very good. I definitely don't think their offense was great. And I definitely don't think Nick Foles was good at all. Nick Foles averaged 3.2 yards per completion last night. He was 19 of 34. He threw a pick, but he really should have thrown 3 picks. There were several. They were just flat dropped by the Atlanta defensive backs. He was not good by any stretch of the imagination last night. And I read an article the other day by Kevin Clark at The Ringer talking about Nick Foles, lest we forget, he wasn't very good in December of last year either. But as the Eagles headed into the playoffs, the Eagles headed into full pad practices. And Doug Peterson adjusted the playbook to put more things in that Nick Foles liked. Slants, darts, quick passes. And you have to wonder if there's a few different kind of plays. Obviously, RPOs, which everybody pointed out last night. Chris Collinsworth's in love with saying the 3 letters RPO. But if it's all built there for Nick Foles, how long till other teams catch up with it? I think you come out of last night's game both optimistic and pessimistic if you're an Eagles fan. Pessimistic about who Nick Foles is going to be for you this year. Pessimistic about how good Nick Foles is. Pessimistic about all that talk of it'd take 2 number 1 picks to pry Nick Foles out of Philadelphia because that's how good Nick Foles is. But optimistic because you got that W. That's a big win. I said this a little early in the show. You realize Nick Foles made $500,000 last night? He made $250,000 for, I believe, taking 33% of the snaps in the Eagles game. More than 33%. And another $250K for leading the Eagles to a W. And now that they are 1-0, look at what this schedule looks like going forward. The Eagles have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, led by Ryan Fitzpatrick, in Week 2. They've got the Indianapolis Colts and Andrew Luck. And outside of Andrew Luck, not much in Week 3. And they've got the Tennessee Titans in Week 4. It's not until October they have to take on a real contender in the Minnesota Vikings. And by that point, Carson Wentz could be back. And they could easily be 4-0. The Eagles have to feel good about getting that W, that 1-0 out of the gates against the Atlanta Falcons, but feel a little bit concerned about whether or not Nick Foles can keep them on the right track until Carson Wentz gets back. The schedule will certainly be in their favor. The Will Cain Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Remember, nothing makes up for your football obsession like a surprise from 1-800-Flowers.com. To order a dozen multicolored roses, plus an extra bouquet and a vase for just $29.99, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. Did you guys see this meme going around Twitter right now? Elon Musk, founder of Tesla, an all-around considered genius, went on the Joe Rogan podcast, the Joe Rogan Experience. It's a good podcast. You should check it out. And Rogan baits Elon Musk into taking a drag on a blunt, a tobacco, marijuana cigarette, as they said in 1920s. What? Two things. First of all, I'm not sure Elon Musk inhaled. Look at the video.
Definitely didn't.
Definitely didn't, right, Cerruti?
No way.
Second, there's some good memes going around with a still shot of Elon Musk letting smoke billow out of his face with a funny face. And one of my favorites was Jim Treacher, who used to write for, I believe, the Daily Caller, said, in quotation marks, the kind of questions that I ask after you're taking a big hit like that. But where are all the baby pigeons? How come you never see baby pigeons? It's true. Where are all the baby pigeons? I've always wondered, and other people don't find this is quite as odd, where are all the dead squirrels? I'm not talking about the roadkill squirrels. I'm talking about the ones that die of natural causes. There's tons of squirrels running around in every park, right? You see squirrels everywhere. But where are their dead bodies? Where do old squirrels go to die? I don't understand that stuff. Coming up, what's the dead college football programs?
Support for the Will Cain Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying a home for a moment. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about that. They're calling it the power buying process. Here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they'll lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now, here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
This is the Will Cain Podcast on ESPN Radio.
I remember growing up in Sherman, Texas. There was a couple of these locations. I don't know, 2, 3, 4. Cursed real estate locations. You drive by and you go, no matter what goes in there, no matter what restaurant tries to open, it fails. Even Mazzio's, when they came in with their first big pizza joint chain in that small town in Texas, even Mazzio's failed eventually at that cursed location on Texoma Parkway. And every town's got that place. Wherever you're from, whatever you're driving through, you know what I'm talking about. It's that cursed piece of real estate. That place that can never support the restaurant. But time after time, they keep trying. What's the cursed restaurant of college football? What's the program that's dead and can't get up? You just can't turn it around. What's the worst program in college football? It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and on ESPN News. You can answer that question. Give me a call. 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. Coming up in this hour, we're going to grab Jonathan Vilma. He's going to hop on, talk to us about the big college football games this weekend. Plus, I'm going to make my picks across the NFL and college football and run it by our betting shark here at ESPN. See if my bets are going to pay off. But first, it occurred to me, I don't know, during the first weekend of college football when, I guess, Nicholls State, a non-FBS school, beat Kansas 26-23. Kansas, who has won 3 games over the last 3 seasons. Kansas, who has won 28 games over the last decade. Our buddy Booger McFarland is fond of a saying, water always finds its level. Well, the level of water that Kansas always settles in on is about, 2-3 wins a year. Now, I understand that Mark Mangino came in. He had that nice, 10-1 season at the time, took them to the Orange Bowl. They ended up, I believe, number 7 by the end of the year in the AP Top 25. But I'm not talking about your aberrations. I'm not talking about your anomalies. I'm talking about who you are. I'm talking about if you can really take that job and turn it into either sustainable success or a springboard to a better job. What are the worst jobs if your buddy said, hey, man, I'm going to coach at Wake Forest? You'd go, please, man, hold out for the next one. I've got a list of possible entries here, and I will ultimately give you my worst job in college football. Kansas, as I just laid out, is in the running. It's got to be one of the worst. How do you get Kansas off the mat? Wake Forest, I mentioned that a little bit earlier talking to Ian Fitzsimmons of Freddie and Fitzsimmons. Wake Forest has only had 2 finishes in the AP Top 25 since, the 70s. Duke, 1 Top 25 finish of that same kind of time frame. Ian Fitzsimmons took big exception to Duke because what he said David Cutcliffe is doing there deserves a statue outside the stadium. But come on, man. Duke, is that ever going to be anything more than, Duke? Matt Campbell at Iowa State's got 2 8-win seasons. He's doing all right. They've got 1 finish in the top 25 since, I believe, the 1980s as well. Iowa State's always in the cellar. Will Matt Campbell stick around and try to be Gary Patterson to TCU at Iowa State? How about Vanderbilt? In the SEC, Vanderbilt's winning percentage, I believe, all time. Let me get a fact check on that, but it's .260. Conference play, SEC, Vanderbilt. That's including your James Franklin years. How about Illinois? Had a nice little season perhaps under Ron Turner. Had one under Ron Zook. But year in, year out, Illinois. Ugly. Don't take that job. I think Kentucky's rough. So Rudy disagrees with me. Kentucky, I don't know how Kentucky can ever become a football school. From Hal Mumme to Mark Stoops, Kentucky's just always a little worse than average, a little better than bad, in the SEC. But I think the worst job in college football, Power 5 conferences, keep your New Mexico States, keep your UTEPs. In the Power 5, the one program that can't get off the mat, the one program that seems to be a dead-end job for coaches is the University of Indiana. They haven't had a winning season in conference play in 2 decades. They haven't won a bowl game since 1991. The Indiana Hoosiers, good at basketball, bad place for football. 888-729-3776. Who are the worst programs in college football? What are the biggest dead-end jobs? Let me throw it to you guys in the studio. Think I missed somebody or think I'm being too harsh on any one of these programs?
I mean, I think it's hard to just brush away some of the success that Kansas has had. They made it, like you said, they made an Orange Bowl, so they're not dead. They can have success. It's just, they're not going to win 10 games every year. They can have every 20, 25 years they're going to win a few games. That doesn't mean the program is dead. I feel like if you make a BCS Bowl or are in the running now for the playoff, like Kansas would have been if it was the system currently, you can't be a dead program. Same thing with Wake Forest.
I don't think you can fall back. I don't think you can fall back on one season of Mark Mangino.
Doesn't that prove that it's not? There is some success to be had there. It's not all.
I'm
dead.
talking about turn it around, man. Kansas had a blip, came up, and went right back to where they were before. Okay? You can say the same thing about a lot of these programs. Illinois had a blip in the early 2000s, comes up, goes right back down afterwards. Okay? These are the exceptions. But it's who you are, man. Maybe you have a good run for a month at the restaurant. Maybe pizza sales are really good. Formazio's there for a little bit. But ultimately, you're going out of business like every other business that sat in that same location. I don't think Kansas, the truth of the matter is, can somebody do at Kansas or Indiana or Iowa State, and we'll see if Matt Campbell can pull it off over the long term, what as Ian Fitzsimmons pointed out, Bill Snyder did at Kansas State. Because it was no uglier than what Kansas State was for decades. And now you've got, well, decades because of Bill Snyder where Kansas State has been relevant. Or what's happened at TCU. It's hard to overstate how bad TCU was in the 90s and the 80s. You got to go back, way back, to find any glory for TCU. But comes in Dennis Franchione and then Gary Patterson, and that program looks completely resurrected. That I doubt. I'm just doubting it. Obviously, those two programs can show you it can happen. But I'm going to have to see it at Iowa State, Indiana, Kansas, Duke, Wake Forest, places like that, Cerruti. All right, let's do this. Let me go to PI really quick. PI in Florida. You're on the Will Cain Show.
What's going on, Will? I just want to talk about Matty Ice. I think he's like Andy Dalton, maybe one level above him, if anything. And I'll tell you why. Mainly because I think he's supposed to be like a cerebral quarterback, like a Tom Brady type, like gets to the line, figures stuff out, moves around the defense, and he never does it. Like, they call it 4 verticals, like I don't know how many times in the red zone. He can't throw it in bounce in the red zone. He should have hit Sanu on the post in the red zone. They had 5 plays, like, to score at the end of the game. He couldn't get it done. He was like this at BC. I'm an ACC guy. I watch ACC all the time. He was like that at Boston College. Like, he's supposed to be better than he is, but he's just not. So, yeah, he's about 15,
I think you're being
18,
a little harsh.
something like that.
That's too low. See, we're disagreeing by a margin of, 5. He's not Andy Dalton, but he's also not Drew Brees. Matty Ice, after last night, is not as bad as he was last night either. But he's closer to Kirk Cousins in my estimation. He's in, right now, I believe Matt Ryan is in the 8 to 12 range of quarterbacks. But I believe one more year by Carson Wentz, a good year by Dak Prescott, a good year by Deshaun Watson, a good year by Jimmy Garoppolo, and you could see Matt Ryan leaped by up to 4 quarterbacks, pushing him into that 13, 14, 15 range. And that brings up an interesting question then. If you have an average quarterback, even if he's one you can get by with, do you have to go back to the well sooner or later? All right, Cerruti, my join me's out. I can't see the live read, so what we're going to do is we're going to get out here. I'm going to tell you this. In just a moment, I am going to give you my picks. NFL and college football, my 5 favorite bets for this weekend. We'll run it by our ESPN Shark, see if I've got it right. And we'll have Jonathan Vilma come in, talk about a little college football. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Support for the Will Cain Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying a home for a moment. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about that. They're calling it the power buying process. Here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they'll lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now, here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. Either way, you win. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and on ESPN News. We got a new top 5 in the 5 this week. I'm going to give you my top 5 bets for this weekend in college and pro football. Take it away, Spencer.
The top 5.
List radio talk is terrible.
In the 5.
All right, in order to do this right, let's bring in Doug Kezirian, ESPN's gambling analyst and host of Behind the Bets podcast. I'll give a game, Doug. You give me a few nuggets by telling me whether you think I've got bad idea, bad positions on these bets. Cool?
It works for me, my man.
All right, number 5, my 5th most confident bet this weekend. I'm going to take the Houston Texans. I think I'm getting 6, Doug. 6 against the Patriots up in Foxborough. I just like Deshaun Watson. I like that. Keeping it close, him keeping it close against a bad New England defense. What say you?
What's not to like, right? This guy was all-world last year, 5-1 when he was taking over the starting role, and they were 5-1 against the point spread with Watson at quarterback. Plus, we hear so much about the Super Bowl hangover. The teams that lost the Super Bowl in the opener, the Week 1 game, are 2-16 in the past 18 years against the point spread. So, obviously, all the trends point in your favor.
Nice. I like where I'm headed here. Let's go to number 4 on my list. I want points. I gave you 2 reasons I did this, Doug. I like getting 30 points, and believe it or not, I'm not yet a believer in Kyler Murray at OU. So I'm going to take UCLA plus 30 at OU, even though I don't know what's going on at quarterback for UCLA.
Yeah, I wonder if your Texas fandom is swaying you. But no, this is a really interesting line for betting nerds like myself, because a week ago, so you can bet a bunch of games in advance. Like right now, you can bet the Red River rivalry. You can bet the Iron Bowl. You can bet USC, UCLA, and the lines change every week. So this game last week was only 20.5. But then after Oklahoma lights up Florida Atlantic and UCLA looks awful, loses at home as a 16 or 17-point favorite to Cincinnati, the line shoots up 10 points. Is it too much? Well, Wilton Speight is hurt, so it looks like the backup, who's probably a better fit for Chip Kelly's offense, is going to play. It's a lot of points, but OU's offense is powerful.
All right, so you don't like this one. All right, let's go to number 3 then. This just shows how objective
I'm not saying I don't. I'm just all over the place there.
Okay, all right. It's a whole lot of unknowns because the point is well taken. We don't know what's going to happen with UCLA in their quarterback position here. Number 3, I am going to take the New York Giants at home plus 3 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. What do you say?
I'm with you on this one, and I know it feels like a contrarian play for both of us, but I think it's smart. Look, everyone's assuming the Jaguars are this, like, team trending up. They were close to the Super Bowl, but look, last year the two best quarterbacks in the division they won were Deshaun Watson and Andrew Luck, both hurt. So they win 10 games, but there's an asterisk there. And last year, everything went right. They were so healthy. Their defense, just everything felt right. I think it's tough to go in on the road and cover this 3 where the Giants are finally healthy and have more weapons with Saquon Barkley. Beckham's back. I like the Giants plus 3 as well. We see eye to eye on that one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close one. By the way, the Will Cain Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Commercial insurance through Progressive protects your business and your dream. Choose from over 30 coverage options at ProgressiveCommercial.com. We've got Doug Kezirian, ESPN's gambling analyst and host of Behind the Bets podcast here. I'm running my picks by Doug. I'm down to my top 2 gambling picks this weekend. This one might be a little contrarian as well, Doug, because everybody I hear says it's going to be a close game, and some are putting it on an upset special. But I'm just a big believer in Georgia. So I'm going to bet on Georgia, giving up 10, even going up to South Carolina. I like Jake Fromm. I like defense. I think they're going to be fine at running back. I like Georgia.
2 things here, both on opposite sides. One supports you. So the over-under by the wise guys, the professional bettors in Vegas, have bet this one up noticeably, over 5 points. So it's gone from 51 to 56. That means more points scored. That means laying 10 is not as difficult, quote-unquote, to do than in a low-scoring game, right? It's just more points out there, so 10 is not as valuable. But South Carolina, 7-1 against the point spread as an underdog in the last 8 games, all last year. So I don't know. It's a lot of points. If I had to pick one side, I would lean your way as well.
You would? Okay. I feel more confident with you right now in my pro picks than my college picks from what I'm hearing from you. So that goes to my number 1. And you accused me of homerism perhaps on my OU prism. I'm sure I might hear that again from the guys in the booth and you as well. But I truly do believe I like, at number 1, the Dallas Cowboys getting 3 points against the Carolina Panthers. Here's the thing. Bad weather, wet, raining, Cowboys run the ball, Zeke gets it 25 to 30 times. I think it's going to be close. I'll take the Cowboys +3.
I kind of like it, my man. Look, all the metrics and analytics guys will tell you running back is like basically the least important position on the field. It's about the offensive line. And I'm not saying anything negative about Zeke, but last year when they struggled because they had injuries on the O-line. 2 years ago when they were great, that offensive line was healthy and obviously produced. Elliott was top 5 in the NFL MVP voting. So when they're healthy, this team can actually compete for the division. Cowboys catching a full 3. We know how difficult it is to handicap in the NFL. The 3 is so important in NFL betting. Last year, 16% of NFL games were decided by exactly 3 points. It's a key number. And Carolina's a weird team. They were great in one-score games last year. We're not really sure about the Panthers. I'm hot and cold on Cam Newton. I think that's a safe play, even if it is a homer play.
All right, before I let you go, Doug, repeat that stat for me. What percentage of games last year were decided by 3 points?
16% last year.
All right, it's good stuff, man. That's why we have you here.
Exactly
I've enjoyed it.
3.
This is good.
Yeah, exactly 3.
Yep. So that'd be a push. But all right, man, we'll keep doing it. It's Doug Kezirian at Doug ESPN, Behind the Bets podcast, our gambling expert. Thanks, Doug.
You got it, my man. Have a good weekend.
All right, you too. HR, payroll, talent, and timekeeping in one unified system. Learn more at Kronos.com. Kronos, workforce innovation that works. All right.
Hold on.
I was telling you guys the other day.
Hey, hold on. We have
Cowboys in Carolina. Cam Newton's going to have a huge year in Norv Turner's offense, and the sneaky big news is Dallas just isn't very good. Panthers at home win by a touchdown.
What's that? That's Greeny this morning?
That was Greeny this morning. He was doing his picks, and once he said the sneaky Cowboys are going to be bad, I was like, we got to bring that onto the show.
Let me hear it one more time.
Cowboys in Carolina. Cam Newton's going to have a huge year in Norv Turner's offense, and the sneaky big news is Dallas just isn't very good. Panthers at home win by a touchdown.
Where do you get off, Greeny? Where are you getting that information? Where are you pulling that, Greenberg? The sneaky news is the Cowboys aren't very good? I don't know. Maybe I'm living in an upside-down world. Maybe everybody's taking crazy pills. But last I checked, 9 wins was more than 7, and that's a year removed from going 13-3. I don't know where you get off not very good. I'll be seeing you around the office. Speaking of people around the office, by the way, I dropped this little nugget the other day, and I forgot to follow up on it. I told you guys. I had a dream about Molly Karam. I want to run it by you. Tell me what you think it means. That and Jonathan Vilma talking college football next on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
So vaping is pretty popular right now. No ash, no odor, no brainer. But sometimes it's hard to find a satisfying vape that's simple and convenient. So Blue, who introduced vaping to the world, is now introducing MyBlue. MyBlue gives you all the satisfaction with none of the hassle. Just click and go. With MyBlue's easy-to-use one-click liquid pods, you can switch between flavors in seconds. You have a range of delicious flavors to choose from. Just 20 minutes to charge, and you're set all day. Plus, it comes with a free limited lifetime device warranty called MyCare. Ready to make the switch? Try MyBlue today at MyBlue.com. Not for sale to minors. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
2 in college football, week 1 in the NFL. Let's break it all down here on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and ESPN News. To do that, joining me now is ESPN's college football analyst, former Miami Hurricane, Jonathan Vilma is on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. What's up, John?
What's up, Will? What's going on, man?
Well, nothing. It's been a long time coming. Sort of feel like you're like a sister wife or something. There was all those months there where I was hanging out with Drusilla, and then I'd leave, and you'd come in on Fridays, and I heard you sitting in my chair, and y'all were having such a good time. I had conflicted emotions about it.
You can be conflicted, but I think that you were mistaken. It was my chair. So you were actually sitting in my chair, and then I came and rightfully took it back. That's what happened.
Well, I hate to do the legal thing on you, but there's a little adverse possession. I had it 3 days a week, so let's not fight here.
Did you go? You went straight legal. You don't even want to fight. You're not even going to take it outside. We're just going straight lawyers. Okay, all right.
Well, I know I have to do that because at the end, you lay down the trump card, which is, Will, I'm going to whoop your butt. So there's that one. So I got to get you caught up in red tape before we get there. All right, Jonathan Vilma here on the Will Cain Show. John, let's start with the biggest headline of the weekend is Georgia, South Carolina. A lot of people looking at this going upset here for for Georgia. South Carolina's coming. Will Muschamp's got the program on the right foot. I don't see it, man. I'm just a big believer in Georgia. I'm even laying the points when I bet it, but I'm having trouble that I don't even have Georgia in my college football playoffs, and I have massive regret about it. So what do you think about this weekend?
Well, I don't see an upset coming. I do see South Carolina being very, very competitive. I watched those guys. I was just watching them yesterday, as a matter of fact, and I like the way Jake Bentley plays. I like what they're doing with the offensive line, referring to South Carolina. But when you look at Georgia, I was watching them, and frankly, they remind me of old school me and the Hurricanes, how fast they play defensively. They love running the ball. The O-line loves getting after it. They take pride in finishing their blocks. So I was like, man, this team, Kirby Smart, has Georgia on the right track. They are a very good team, and they welcome games like this, where they're going to be challenged, they're going to be tested, and they have the naysayers. They're going to step up. They're going to step up.
Who in professional football, Vilma, reminds you of you the most?
Who reminds me of me the most in professional football? I want to say it's going to be Roquan Smith. As soon as I see him, last year watching him on film, I'll never forget the first film I saw of him was after the Notre Dame game. And I was like, whoa, who is this guy? He was fast, he was physical, he was violent at the point of attack. He reminded me of me. I remember I would watch some of the plays and be like, man, that's exactly what I would have done. Just reading the keys, watching the flow, watching him get downhill. So I'd say he does, and I only mention him specifically because Ryan Pace is the GM over there, and he was with me at the Saints for all my years. And I remember as soon as Ryan Pace drafted him, I sent him a text, said congratulations, and he said, John, we just drafted another you. I was like, really? He said, really? I'm telling you, he's all ball, he's athletic, a little bit smaller in stature, very physical, very quick. He said he's another you, man. We drafted another Vilma. I was like, cool, man. I appreciate that.
Let's get back to college football in just a second, but while we're at it, let me ask you about one more linebacker. I'm sure that I have some homer instincts leading this direction, but I truly believe this could be a comeback story of the year. What about, you talk about speed, reading defenses, playing downhill. What about, that's what Jalen Smith was at Notre Dame, right? But he just had the awful injury, and he's looking pretty good now. You think, go ahead.
I agree with you. He was looking good. It's always interesting. I had two season-ending knee surgeries, one after my fourth year in the league and one later on. And I remember at the one after my fourth year in the league, that next year, it was 2008, I was good, but I wasn't myself just yet. And that's what I saw last year. Watching him play, he was good, he was excited, and he was happy to be out there, but he wasn't himself just yet. And this year, I really think is going to be that year where we see that guy that would just literally light it up at 240 pounds, fast as hell, getting downhill at Notre Dame. I think we're going to see that guy come out now that he has another year under his belt to really get healthy, because, it's always interesting as from this side now, not the player side, but the media side. We talk about, okay, a guy's back, he's healthy. And what we're really saying is that he's just back to being what he would have been a year prior.
Right.
He hasn't gotten better. He just got back to what he was before. We want to see him get better. So it's always interesting that we say that and then we see them performing like, he's just not there yet. And it's like, well, he hasn't had a chance to grow and get better yet. He's just finally able to be healthy and run on the field.
Right. Jonathan Vilma, college football analyst here on the Will Cain Show. All right, I'm going to give you a couple games, Jonathan. You tell me you don't see the upset for South Carolina, Georgia. I'm going to give you, see, 3 games. You tell me if you see an upset in any of these 3 games. First of all, Clemson, Texas A&M. Second, USC, Stanford. Or third, Mississippi State, Kansas State. Do you see an upset in any of those 3 games?
I have to take out USC, Stanford. That is not an upset, whichever team wins. I believe Stanford is going to win. David Shaw will be able to control that line of scrimmage and be able to run the ball. USC looks very iffy. Wow, the Clemson, Texas A&M.
You're thinking about that?
All right. No, I'm thinking about it because there is talent on that Texas A&M squad, and what Jimbo has done is implement more of this with the O-line I'm talking about, with this combo blocking, zone blocking and combo blocking, right, up to the next level, the quote-unquote pro-style offense. And it's really more about that offensive line being able to block like NFL offensive lines would do. So when I see that and I see how they are aggressive in doing it, I say, well, if you can do that, you can essentially have an opportunity to control the line of scrimmage against these freaks of nature that are on the defensive line for Clemson that go like 3 deep over at Clemson. Lord knows how they get so many talented guys on the defensive line. But if you can kind of control them or just get them a little tired, that's always the enemy of any defensive lineman. Run 8, 9, 10 plays in a row, you're tired. All of a sudden you can't rush the passer. You're not getting off blocks. That I see that side, but then I'm like, Clemson's too talented. And I can't give it to Texas A&M. I can't.
So that leaves Kansas State, Mississippi State.
No.
No, not there either.
I purposely avoided that, Will. No, I purposely avoided that one. I was like, no, it's not happening. That's why I just kind of left it alone. Yeah, you're pretty good over there. You caught on. I was just kind of going to let that go by the wayside.
You're pretty good yourself. Now I know why you had that seat one day a week. I understand now. You're pretty good. Nah, I listened when it was going down. Maybe you can join me. Maybe you can join me going into the future, man. I'd love to have that.
Likewise, I would. It'll be a lot of fun. I can already see that we're going to fight on commercial break, and then we'll have to somehow get it together when we're back on live. I see it happening.
All right, good stuff. Jonathan Vilma, ESPN's college football analyst here on the Will Cain Show. Thanks, John. We'll be talking.
Thanks, Will.
The big game of Week 2 as college football kicks off tomorrow is Georgia, South Carolina on ESPN Radio. Coverage starts at 2:30 Eastern. This weekend preview on the Will Cain Show is brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit us at geico.com or call 1-800-947-AUTO. Put me on the couch next. You be my psychiatrist. What is this dream I had about Molly Karam all about? Next on the Will Cain Show. I want you to try to interpret this dream for me here in just a moment. But first, let's go to Bo in the great state, the Lone Star State of Texas. What's up, Bo?
Hey, what's up, Will? How you doing, man? Appreciate you having me on.
All right. Yeah.
So you were talking earlier about college football and places coaches go to die. I think that's maybe Texas Tech with the school there, and ever since the Pirate, man, I don't know about that. It just seems like a tough place.
Yeah, but the Pirates showed what can be done. I mean, he did it for a while. Had Texas Tech up there in the top 5 for a while. I mean, I'm not telling you Texas Tech's ever going to arrive at the place that, I don't know, OU is, and forgive the homerism because it's not accurate over the last 8 years, but Texas is, or LSU is. I don't think that's what Texas Tech's expectations to become that can be. But, I mean, hell, if TCU can do it, why can't Texas Tech do it? I mean, explain to me that. If you're third in the pecking order on recruits in the state of Texas and the surrounding region, and TCU can get by with that, why can't Texas Tech? I'll tell you this. Water finding its level, as Booger said. Texas Tech's level is like 4th, 5th in the Big 12, like in that range. There'll be years when they jump up and years when they fall low. That's what Spike Dykes had. You know, Mike Leach was a little better than that over time. And the truth of the matter is, and I met him, and I liked him, and he's stylish, and he's great for out there West Texas, Lubbock, giving you a little style and flair. But the truth of the matter is, Cliff Kingsbury's not living up to that level. And if they don't perform, it might be the coach's graveyard for Cliff Kingsbury. But I don't think Texas Tech is in that Iowa State, Kansas, Indiana territory. I don't think Texas Tech is that. I think Texas Tech is better than where Kentucky is. Kentucky's lower on the totem pole of jobs you go to die than Texas Tech. The Will Cain Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. So last week, I believe it was last week, I did this segment on First Take. So we went in, and it was whether or not Odell Beckham Jr., his woe is me concerns about being a $95 million contract athlete and having to take selfies with people from time to time is a really, really hard knock life. And I'm going in to talk about that. But the truth of the matter is, when I do First Take, I don't really find out until that morning what I'm going to be talking about. So I go on the show, let's call it 10:30, 11 a.m. I don't really know until 8:30 a.m. what I'm going to be talking about that day. So I didn't know when I had this dream the night before that I'd be talking about this sort of fishbowl celebrity experience. And yet I had this dream. What does it mean? I'm sitting at this restaurant with my family, okay? My wife, my kids. I think there's a few other people at the restaurant as well. It's in New York City. And I've never taken a Xanax in my life. I've never taken any kind of, pill that brings you down or evens you out or whatever that does. I don't even know what to say because I've never really taken it. I don't know how it makes you feel. But in my dream, I take one for whatever reason. We're sitting at this restaurant, and I take this Xanax. And I don't know how it's going to affect me, and I'm like, is it going to make me feel good? Is it going to make me feel lethargic? What's it going to do to me? Like, let's take it. Like, okay. I pop the pill. And I'm sitting there, and then almost immediately, I'm not drooling, but I'm also don't have any pep in my step. I'm pretty lethargic now. And I'm looking out the window of the restaurant, and out walks Molly Karam, the host of First Take. And Molly is dressed to the nines. I mean, she's looking sharp. And Molly's walking down the street, and I see her, and I go, hey, probably said it in really slowly, there goes Molly. And a crowd's starting to come around Molly. Guy comes up, can I get a picture? And another guy comes up, and then the crowd is starting to gather around Molly, and she's, again, dressed to the nines, and it's this crowd of people, and I'm like, this isn't good. This is a bad situation. This thing's escalating. I should do something. But I'm all Xanaxed up, whatever that means, because that's not really what it does to you. I understand, but in my dream, that's what's going on. And I can't move. I can't pop to action there. But my wife does. My wife gets up, man. She springs to action. And for some reason, there's also a chain link fence right outside the window of this restaurant separating us from where all this is going down. My wife climbs the chain link fence, goes over, and she goes over to try to start helping Molly escort her. Now the crowd's getting really big around them. And it's really getting hairy. And I'm like, this isn't good. Now I'm trying to, drag myself like Leonardo DiCaprio in Wolf of Wall Street down the steps to his Lamborghini. I'm trying to move, get into action here. And I'm slowly going towards, I get out the restaurant and I get to the chain link fence and I look down the street and I grab the fence and I look down and boom, my wife is laid out on the ground. Molly's been punched. It's not good. And I yell, MFer. And then I wake up. And that's that. Now you tell me what that means, Rudy.
I don't even want to begin to tell you what it means. It's definitely disturbing. It was very vivid, right? Too. You remember, I was wondering what the punchline of this dream was going to be, because most dreams just kind of end and you're like, what the heck happened? And when you said they were both on the ground after being punched, it's pretty aggressive. Okay. Did you wake up sweating?
But
were you
right.
nervous? Did you think something happened? For real?
I know what happened. This crowd got unruly and took the ladies out.